Praying like crazy ever since they've heard about it. I think it's one thing that hits students. It's real to them.
It was 9 years ago that students at Oostburg Christian School raised their voices in song, prayer, and even shaved their heads in support of a fellow student battling cancer. CBS 58 was there to share the story of then third grader Abby Fallon. Today, Abby is a high school senior, and while she's cancer-free, the disease has left her with limited use of her right arm. But as we discovered during our return to Oostburg, that's not stopping this determined teenager with strong faith from staying focused on all that's in front of her, including the bullseye on an archery target. Frank Healy puts Abby Fallon in our Sunday morning spotlight.
Just grabbing the arrow, making sure my feet are in the right position.
Number 6 for high school girls archery in Wisconsin. 141st out of over 6,600 competitors at nationals in Kentucky, with a score of 286 out of 300. It's fair to say 18-year-old Abby Fallon has accomplished a lot in her 2 years of practicing archery.
We figured we would either anger the orthopedic surgeon or the dentist. We chose to anger the dentist. No, I don't shoot like everyone else. I kind of stand out. When I was 9 years old, I was diagnosed with bone cancer in my right shoulder. And as a result of that, they had to take out the bones and the muscles in there. So I have limited arm function.
Abby can only lift about 15 pounds with her right arm, which is supported by an internal strap. It takes at least 16 pounds to even draw a bow like these. So, obviously, she shoots using her mouth.
Yeah. Like that. And then I push the bow forward, which inevitably draws it. So then when I want to release my arrow, I just open my mouth.
And there was a day when Mrs. Antis, the PE teacher, was helping me, and I noticed there was a girl on the sidelines. So I asked Mrs. Antis what was going on, and she just said that that was Abby. And
CJ Swart, the Oostburg Archery High School assistant coach, says that's when he ordered a mouth tab like this one.
I was aware of mouth tabs on bows at that point, so I told her I could set up a bow quick with a mouth tab. Was able to get her on the line shooting.
Abby's mom, Nikki Fallon, says she was skeptical at first.
She said, "Mom, I'm going to get to shoot archery tomorrow in gym class." And I went, okay. And I just kind of blew it off because I'm like, how do you think you're going to shoot with one arm, kid?
Abby says the first time was intense.
Everyone else had finished their round. And then Mrs. Antis called me over to try out this bow that Coach CJ had brought for me.
And then the next day, I got a video from the teacher showing her shooting with her mouth. And I was like, oh, I guess I can eat that.
Head coach and CJ's wife, Jen Swart, says that changed everything.
3-inch little strip with a grommet hole punch through it has changed her life.
CJ saw Abby's passion right away and offered her equipment to get better.
You can have this extra target, take it, you've got a barn, set it up, practice as much as you want.
Soon, she was asking for more arrows.
When you get a tight grouping, they tend to run into each other, so you're going to strip off the fletchings, you're going to bend arrows because it's just the nature of it.
Abby says the reactions at competitions from kids who had never seen her shoot before were priceless.
I finish, I grab my bow, I walk back, and as I'm walking back, I see my shooting partner's face and his friend's face, and they're like...
Varsity letters, medals, and more recognition came with that.
Having her as a part of our team has elevated the fellow teammates, seeing her dedication to the sport.
Amy Antes, Abby's physical education teacher, agrees.
Well, I think it's a good message for everyone, Abby and everybody else, that everyone's got their own challenges and their own things that they need to overcome, and hers happens to be that she doesn't have a shoulder, really. But that doesn't mean that you have all these limits put on your life. But she's also just like blown me out of the water with things that I've kind of challenged her with, and she's just like, okay. Climbing a telephone pole with one arm, which is just like mind-blowing.
But it wasn't always going to be like this.
And on Christmas Day, she was in tears, and nothing I could do could take away the pain.
When Abby was 9, Nikki says she kept having pain in her shoulder. After visiting several different doctors who said Abby had likely just strained her shoulder, they finally got an MRI done.
There's an 8-centimeter tumor on your daughter's right scapula. And I said, is it benign? And they said, no, it's malignant.
To remove that cancer, a significant amount of bone and muscle needed to be removed. Then chemotherapy. Clearly, it didn't stop Abby.
I mean, at one point, her surgeon did tell her, Abby, you need to think about a career that would use your cranium. And Abby wants to consider everything.
Looking to the future, Abby's dad, Sean, says they'll likely need to find another way for Abby to shoot so she doesn't ruin her teeth. Her parents say there's even been talks with a Paralympic coach and a college about taking her skill to the next level.
Just working through what adaptive measures are allowed, what's available, what does that look like, where do you get that equipment from? Obviously, it's not necessarily just a mouth tap.
There was a lot of prayer involved in that. When I first started, I never expected to do really well. God has blessed me a lot with good coaches, parents who make sure I actually practice, and a skill that he gave to me that I can use.
Abby says coming off her performance at Nationals, she hopes one day to shoot in the Paralympics. She says this was only possible from all the people around her and her faith.
If someone like me, a kid from a small town in Wisconsin that no one even has heard of, like if I can get to this point with God's help and with the help of other people, thank you, anyone really can do it.